Welcome back to A Closer Look. I'm Linda Fontaine. My guest today, Representative Timothy Hill and Representative Matthew Hill, brothers, but they're in different districts, so it's okay. So we were talking to Matthew, we were discussing the opioid crisis, and you were talking about some safeguards that were interesting, and we kind of had to go to a quick break. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. And we all know the opioid crisis is really horrible across our state, but for some reason it's really concentrated up here in Northeast Tennessee. And a couple of the safeguards that we were talking about before the break, the prescription drug database that the state keeps so that they know what prescriptions are being written, geographic locations, and they look at the data to be able to see where the trouble spots are. Also, there's a piece of legislation that I'm sponsoring that would allow, if the person wants it, to have a combination, and it sounds a lot harder than what it really is, but a combination lock put on their pill bottles that have the opioids in them if they're afraid that someone's might try to pilfer through their medicine cabinet or steal their meds or something like that. So we've got to get that passed, so we'll see how that goes. But you know, every measure that we can take to try to help people. The other is, it's not a punishment piece of legislation, but it's addiction treatment. We've really got to continue to focus our attention and some serious resources into treatment for folks that have addiction issues, because we have people here in our area that want to work, but they have to be able to pass a drug test. They have to be able to be productive workers, and so putting more resources into addiction treatment, I think, is another way to do that. And some, you know, those addiction treatment services can be provided by physicians, nurse practitioners, and hopefully can continue to be covered by TennCare. And TennCare is one of those issues that touches just about everybody's life in some way, or a family member's life here in Tennessee. This year, the House of Representatives, through Speaker Glenn Cassida, began a new TennCare Oversight Committee. And I am fortunate to be the chairman of that committee. We hear pieces of legislation during session that deal with TennCare, but then we also act as the official oversight arm of the House. TennCare has not had any House oversight in almost 10 years, and so we're delving into managed care organizations, the Choices program, their performance audits, their financials. I mean, we're really getting into the weeds, because about $12 billion is spent on TennCare a year. It accounts for about 33.4% of our state budget, and they have over $300 million right now in their reserve account just sitting there. And so the goal of the Oversight Committee is to try to answer this question: is TennCare providing the maximum amount of quality services for our constituents? And if they're doing that, great. And if they're not, we're going to help them do it.
Good. I like to hear that.
That's what we're here to do.
So it's been 12 years since that's been...
Well, almost 10 in the House.
10 in the House, that's been reviewed. So this might be some positive stuff to maybe make the program more,
we hope so.
Hopefully
we hope
efficient,
so. That's the
effective.
Hope. And to help people, because TennCare has a new director, Mr. Roberts, Gabe Roberts. It has some new staff people with the new governor and new administration, so we're looking forward to working with them to find solutions. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, well, TennCare needs to be reformed. Well, okay, but first you have to have a real good baseline of knowledge and understanding of the program, and then see, okay, how can it be reformed to help the most amount of citizens, because the citizens of the state are the ones paying the bill. They're the ones that are paying for that $12 billion budget every single year.
You're right.
So,
Timothy, what's going on with the Medicaid bill? You were talking a little bit about Medicaid money and what's going on in our region with that.
Well, when you're talking about TennCare, its scope and excuse me, its scope and reach as far as families are concerned is significant. You know, everybody knows someone that either is a participant or a friend's a participant. Tremendous amount of my district are participants in TennCare. So what Matthew is working on as chair of the TennCare Oversight Subcommittee, what he's working on is making sure that it's efficient and gets efficient. If there's room for improvement, that's exactly what should be done, and it's a tremendous lift. I've got a piece of legislation that is calling on Governor Lee and empowering Governor Lee to make the request of the feds, so HHS, Health and Human Services, to block grant our Medicaid dollars. Right now, the federal government has all sorts of red tape. There's this massive cost of compliance. There's been all sorts of political arguments of Medicaid expansion, or what about this group of people or that group of people trying to get coverage. It's not an issue of folks that are in the legislature don't care about that group or care about this group. It's more of a function of how do you pay for it, because that's real dollars. You know, it costs to see a physician, and at the end of the day, it's how do you answer the exact question that he asked. How do you provide quality care with the tax dollars that are there in the most efficient fashion so the most people can get help? Well, my thought is that a Medicaid block grant from the feds, so the feds, in effect, how that would work is they would write a check to the state of Tennessee and say, this is what you get for your Medicaid program. Now, congratulations, state of Tennessee, you get to drive the bus. Now, the downside of that is you can drive the bus off the cliff.
Oh, yes.
Right? And so you have to be very concerned. But I feel good about where we are as far as the interest in trying to make TennCare efficient and appropriate, because it takes both. And so you get TennCare fixed on the right path, on the right track, but this request for a Medicaid block grant, which we have not done before, this is breaking ground, is where we need to be, because we can spend the money better in Tennessee than Washington, D.C. ever could. And they don't know our state like we do. They don't know our population like we do, and so we have to trust that is how it will work out. And the ultimate goal is try to serve as many people as possible.
Very good. So you were talking, when we were off the camera, we were talking about this a little bit. So people, when I say, you were talking about this, and no, he wasn't. Well, when we were off the camera, we were discussing Medicaid a little bit. Now, tell me a little bit about this heartbeat bill.
Yes, Representative Micah Van Huss, who represents the 6th House District, which is right next to mine, he represents the other half of Johnson City and Washington County. Over the last 2 years, he had brought a piece of legislation that did not pass. It's commonly referred to as the heartbeat bill. What the bill says is that once a heartbeat is detected in an unborn baby, that an abortion cannot be performed unless the life of the mother is at stake. Well, this is his 3rd try at it, and just recently he got some very good news in that Governor Lee, the Speaker of the House, Glenn Cassida, and Speaker of the Senate, Randy McNally, all 3 came out in support of the heartbeat bill. I am signed on as a co-prime sponsor. Timothy signed on as a co-prime sponsor because it is essential to continue to defend and protect life in all its stages. And I think that because of some recent events in other states, it's really brought a lot of attention to the heartbeat bill. And I think this is the best opportunity we've had in 3 years to pass this legislation.
Now, what if a woman wanted to get an abortion and she can't now if this bill passed? What about if she was a drug addict and now she's endangering the child?
And that's true. And it's interesting, you know, we have the ETSU Center for Drug Research and Treatment Research that they do in Johnson City and in Gray. And that's, you know, whether it's neonatal abstinence syndrome babies that are born addicted to those various drugs and substances. And hopefully that research will be able to continue to help a lot of babies. And what the heartbeat bill, back to your question, the heartbeat bill is really targeted at elective abortions. Ones that we're not talking about miscarriages, we're not talking about where the life of the mother is at stake in that type of emergency situation. It's not applicable to those. We're talking about elective abortions, which, when you look at the statistics, is the vast majority of those that are done in America.
Right. Oh, so much to think about. This has been such a hot topic lately, especially with things that are going on in New York and maybe Virginia. I don't know. We'll see about that. So you said there was a STOP Act.
Stop yes,
Tell me about that.
That is in response to a very unfortunate accident that happened in my district several months ago. There was a young man getting off of the school bus on Highway 81, and a car struck him. He broke his arm, and thankfully that's all that happened. But the person who accidentally hit the student said that they did not see the bus. That they didn't see the lights flashing and they didn't see the bus. So I started doing some research after that incident and realized the penalty for not obeying the stop sign on a bus was practically nothing. And so what this legislation does is a couple different things. Number one, it says that we will make it a Class A misdemeanor, so that has the possibility of up to a $1,000 fine and 11 months, 29 days in jail. Also, we're authorizing school systems to place cameras on their school buses, on like the stop signs or on the sides of the buses, so that if someone tries to go or does go around the bus, police officers can then use that video footage to turn over to the DA so they can be prosecuted. Because unfortunately, we've got a lot more than what you think, cars that are not stopping for the school buses. They're trying
Oh,
to go
yeah.
around the school buses
seen that.
while the children are getting on and off of the bus, and that's just totally unacceptable. And so that's what, and the legislation also shares the cost of installing the cameras between the state and the local school system.
People got to stop texting and
Yeah.
getting on their phones. You know, I like to think they know the law that you stop when you see one of those stop signs, but people aren't paying attention.
It's a big red sign that says stop, and it flashes.
Right. But when you're not looking where you
That's right.
should be, you can overlook all that.
You're right. You're absolutely right, and we're hopeful that this legislation will be able to help prevent any more accidents happening.
Okay, very good. Well, I really appreciate you guys being on the show today, and I hope you come on again because we have a lot to talk about. And this was a neat idea to have you both on here and learn about what's happening in this region. So
Thank you for having us.
be sure
Thank
to
you.
call me and get back on in a couple of months. I
Okay.
think it'd be good to keep everybody informed on what's going on. It'd be a
Absolutely.
nice forum, a good way to do that. So thank you, Representatives Timothy Hill, Matthew Hill. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. I hope you join us again next week with another edition of A Closer Look.